All right. So I am so excited to have you, Kathryn, on today with us to talk all things Pinterest and help us make sure that we're using this platform to the best of our abilities to grow our businesses. Go ahead and tell us, introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about you. I know some people in the group know you from last year when you were on the summit, and then others might be brand new to you. So tell us a little bit about who you are.
Definitely. So firstly, thank you so much for having me in the summit again. Last year was such fun, and I know everybody's going to be learning so much again this year because the speaker lineup is absolutely amazing. And so, yeah, I just wanted to say thank you again. And for those of you who don't know me, so if you weren't here last year, you should come again next year. You just stick with this because there's always new speakers and really great lineups. But I'm Kathryn Moorehouse, and I teach business owners how to use Pinterest for their business and how to simplify their marketing. So I have gone on a really interesting journey from niching down to just Pinterest, becoming a Pinterest manager and a Pinterest strategist. And now I've evolved into a Pinterest educator and mentor as more and more of my clients and my students wanted to learn a bit more about how to use Pinterest for their own business and also how to serve other people. So I also teach other people how to become Pinterest managers. And it's been so insightful because as I've moved from social media management, I was engaged in a lot of different social media channels. And I'm not the one to say, I think this one's a better one than that one, because I believe they all have a place in this ecosystem online. And it really just depends what kind of business you're running and your personality as to which channels you end up using and how you use them effectively. So whichever ones you end up choosing, I fully believe that you need to embrace that channel for what it is. And Pinterest is always classified as a social media channel, but if you watch the training, you heard me talk about the fact that it's way more than that. It's actually a search engine very similar to Google, very similar to those kinds of search engines. And then mixed in with that, it's the visual side. So you're not just getting text-based results, you're getting visual results. So it's really a great platform for business owners to drive traffic to their website through search engine optimization and using a search engine. And so that's, I think, why I'm so passionate about it, because I've engaged with Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and I still use certain platforms for community and for engagement. But when it comes to traffic generation, I saw Pinterest do something that no other channel was doing at the time, which was allowing us to share the content that we create in an evergreen format, meaning it doesn't disappear, it's on there forever. And because of the search engine functionality, it can show up years later in front of your ideal client. So it can show up today, tomorrow, the next day, depending on when they do that search. And so it drives traffic every single day, even when I'm not working or when my clients aren't working, and actively engaged. So for me, that was just one of the reasons why I niched down into Pinterest marketing, because to me, it was just this fantastic traffic generation platform where I could build the traffic coming to the website, build an audience, build a community without having to, be live every single day, but mostly to actually take the content I'd already created and my clients had already created and leverage it correctly for the long term. So you're sort of making sure that it's doing the work for you that you intended it to do. And so I still use a social media channel like Facebook to host my community, to get that engagement, to build relationships with people. But I look at Pinterest as my traffic generator. And so I hope that today, as Darlene and I chat, we're going to be talking a bit more about how Pinterest can become something outside of these regular social media channels that you have and really focus on it for what its purpose is, which is traffic generation.
Yeah.
And then you look at your socials differently. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
I'm glad that you hit on that though, because a lot of people that I talk to they think that Pinterest is like social media. They think it's like an Instagram or a Facebook group. And like the big light bulb went off for me last year after our conversation of how it's so different. And it's like you said, it's like a list building platform. It's a place for your blog to live on, because a lot of times we write this amazing blog, we share it out to our community and to our email list, and then it goes onto our website where it's on the blog. And yeah, people find it occasionally and people come through maybe through Google or different avenues, but Pinterest just gives it like that mega boost to allow people to see it, for weeks and months and years down the road. I know I have a couple blogs that I get traffic back from, like an old opt-in that I haven't marketed or used in probably 2 years now. And I still get like probably 1 or 2 people per week that sign up for it. And it always amazes me. I'm like, I haven't even talked about this in so long and people are still seeing it. So I love that it's a platform that kind of just keeps giving back to you and keeps showing up even when you're on vacation or sleeping or working on other projects.
Exactly. And that's the thing is when you see what the platform is designed to do, you can love it in that way. You know what I mean? Yeah. When we look at social media marketing or online marketing, we often are trying to find the quickest route to success. And I think that's sort of, it's a good thing, but it also has its pitfalls or downfalls, however you want to phrase that, where we just want to find one that can do everything for us. But when we really look at online marketing, we have to look at what we want our business to become. You know, part of that is we want our businesses to create and build a community or an audience of people around us that are interested in what we have to offer, who we can serve and help and create a community where people can feel like they're a part of something. And that is something that is done on engagement channels. So I like to separate my online channels by the name. So I call them engagement channels if they're designed for engagement. So think Instagram, think Facebook. They want to keep you on the channel and they want content that keeps people on the channel because it allows people to engage. And so when you look at your business, you want to fulfill that area. If you want to grow your community, if you want to have engagement, you need to have an engagement channel. And so that could be Instagram or Facebook or anything like that. But then you also want to leverage any content that you're creating. You want to make sure that you're driving traffic to your offers, driving traffic to your freebies, driving traffic to the content that you spent hours creating. Yeah. And that is a traffic generator. And that could be Pinterest, Google, anything like that.
Awesome. So you mentioned keeping, like, they want to keep you on the platform. So what are some ways that Pinterest works then for keeping like the engagement on the platform? Because I know typically we set it up to where it's linking back to a blog or to an opt-in or to a video. How do we continue to keep that engagement on Pinterest so that Pinterest sees us as trying to keep the community there? Is that something that we should focus on?
It's actually very different. And that's what I love about Pinterest is designed to send people away from the platform, which is the opposite of the engagement channel. And so that is why when you separate Pinterest from the idea of a social media channel and the idea of an engagement channel, you can use it correctly. So what Pinterest wants to do is they want to make sure that people use it as the search engine it is, and also use it as a place to save ideas, to become inspired by certain things, to find what they're looking for. And how do they make sure that people use Pinterest for that? Well, they give them really great content to go to. They give them exactly what they're looking for. And so what you're finding is that Pinterest wants to send people away from the platform to other people's websites, but they want to send people to websites that actually offer what they say they're going to offer, that actually inspire the way they said they were going to inspire. And so what Pinterest does is they have very similar to the Google crawlers. So if you've ever heard of that, you know that Google will go and look at your website. They'll send bots to go and crawl your website to map out where your content is and everything. And it helps rank you in that search engine. Pinterest is very similar. They also have Pinterest crawlers. Okay, so they also go and take a look at your website to see all the different elements. But what Pinterest also does is when you save an image to Pinterest, it's called a pin. When you save that pin to Pinterest, you are going to link it back to a website page. Now, you don't want to link it back to your overall website because if you're saying, read this blog post and you send them to the homepage, Pinterest will get very mad because they want you to send people directly to where they need to go to. And when you link it to that blog post, they're going to take a look at the images on the two places. So the pin image and any images on that blog post. And they're looking for commonalities. So they're going to look at commonalities in your style and any similarities between the text on the images, because what they want is to match the two. It's called image cohesion is what they look for. Now, it doesn't have to be the same image, but there has to be some kind of style cohesion, which is why your branding is so important on your images. Then when you take a look at the actual blog post itself, if you have text on the pin image, text in the pin descriptions, you have text on your blog post, you have text in your title of the blog post. They're looking for text cohesion. So now they're also taking a look at, does this pin image that has all this data attached to it, a description, a pin title, all of that, do the words that appear in there, the keywords specifically, match what we're seeing on this blog post? So they aren't only just saying, we'll send people anywhere. They are saying, we are going to rank pins higher in the search results, and we're going to distribute pins further when there is this text cohesion and image cohesion, because they can then identify that you're a quality content creator. And that when they send someone to your website, that person will come back and use Pinterest again because they sent them to a quality website, to exactly what they were looking for. And another thing that they do is they are also creating more personalization in Pinterest. They are trying to make sure that when you search for something, it's very specific to what you want as a user. So that's how they're keeping people using the platform, to make it easier and easier for you to find what you're looking for. So if you have blue eyes and you search for something and you keep searching blue eyes, they're going to start just delivering things that relate to blue eyes, because they want to be better than other search engines by creating this personalization. And when you purchase a product or anything like that, they also have options for you to be able to easily purchase it from one click through to the website purchase. And when you open up, like you click on a pin and it opens up to that blog post, it actually opens up in a Pinterest window. So you will then have to, if you want to view it in Chrome, you'll have to actually select an option to open it up in Chrome, to open it up in that web browser. So you can actually browse through Pinterest even on the person's website, essentially, which makes it easy for people to go back to the Pinterest app straight after, which I think is how they really keep people continuously using the platform.
Yeah. Somebody was mentioning recently that the keywords that you would use, like if you're writing a blog post and you're searching keywords to use for your blog for like Google, how do you feel they translate to Pinterest? Do you feel like if you've written your blog and you've given it a title for your blog website, do you feel like you can use those exact same words on your Pinterest material, or do you feel like that you have to do a new search for keywords when it comes to the Pinterest side?
It depends, you know, because a lot of the Google search terms are done by people who are looking for things. So a lot of it can be very similar. You just have to think of it as human behavior. If someone is generally typing in vegan brownie recipe, they're going to type that in whether they're in Google or in Pinterest. And so it's a very similar keyword that people would use across the board. But you do want to double check. And so Pinterest, you're going to want to go into Pinterest and you're going to want to search the key phrase in the Pinterest search bar and take a look at what appears in the search results. Also take a look at the Pinterest guided search, which are the little blocks that appear under the search bar. Those are keywords that the majority of users on Pinterest are typing in relation to that key phrase you just put in. So if vegan brownie recipes is in fact a searchable keyword on Pinterest, you will see a lot of content appear under it. And you'll also see a few blocks with variations of that keyword option. Now, sometimes you won't see those blocks because the key phrase that you put in is quite long. Let's say gluten-free vegan brownie recipe. There may not be any extra blocks because people don't search any further than that. So take it back and type in brownie recipe and take a look and see if there are any blocks that say vegan, that say gluten-free, those kind of options. Then click on it and then click on the vegan one and see what that phrase looks like and if it is actually searchable. So there's different ways to do this on Pinterest. And that's why specifically with what I'm teaching my students in 2020 is keywords is the foundation of your Pinterest marketing strategy. Keyword research, understanding where to place them in your website, on your blog posts, in your images, in the various places, and understanding the link between the two is something that I'm really teaching this year because it's the direction Pinterest is going in. And so I would definitely encourage people to double check those keywords.
That's awesome. I'm glad you shared that because I just learned recently that you could kind of do like the keyword search by typing brownies and like that. I never realized or put it together that that bar that would show up below that was kind of like keyword, like hints and clues for things that we could use.
Exactly.
And so it has made a difference, I've noticed in some of my blog posts because I have gone in and done Google for like my blog and for my website. And then right before I would post it on Pinterest, I would double check some of those keywords. And if something else was showing up too, I would go back and just add a couple other words to it as well. And the title, just to kind of beef it up a little bit and make it a little bit more attractive.
Definitely. It makes a huge difference. And I think we're going to find that in this year or two to come, that the bulk of traffic and engagement and so on really will come down to keyword usage and search engine optimization, because there's a lot of content on Pinterest, which is great. And again, fantastic imagery is hugely important. But when you look at how the platform is structured, you have to use it that way. You know what I mean? And I think that's what we are realizing more and more as users, as marketers, and so on. Look at the platform, identify what that platform wants from you, and give it that.
Yeah, no, so good. I'm so glad you shared that, because it's something that I don't think everybody knows. So it's something that definitely, it sparks a new idea. You're like, okay, now I can go in there and look at this with totally different eyes in a different way. And then even go back maybe to would you recommend going back to like some older posts if it's not getting the traction that you know it should? Like if you know it's a good post, and like go in and change a couple of the keywords, like would that be something that would be helpful? Or would you create a new pin with those new posts? How do you feel about that?
So the best thing that you can do is always move forward rather than going backwards. So you can try, like you would go backwards if you were looking at your boards. You want to update your boards, you want to update the board descriptions, because those are always going to be static and there. And so those are the kind of things that if you realize you need more keywords or to adjust them, that's what you would go back and do. But in terms of moving forward, you're looking at either adding new pin images for that same piece of content. So that's called an image variation. And it's also considered a fresh piece of content then. Now, the other thing that you can do if you want to update those keywords is you can simply repin the image and change the keywords in that repin. So instead of changing the original pin that you added, you're going to click save on the pin and save it to a new board. And then you're going to adjust the keywords, because now it's being saved as a brand new pin, even though it's an old piece of content. And so when you repin like that, if you update the description there, it's going to be associated with that pin image now. And so you can do it that way, or you can add a brand new pin with a new design and those updated keywords. But it's a lot easier to move forward than it is to go back, especially when you have a lot of content.
No, that makes total sense. I've also seen a couple people that I follow on Pinterest take an old pin and create a new image and a new name for it and share it. How much of that is too much, and how much of it is a good idea? Because I know some people have like the same post with like 10 to 15 different titles and images on that. Is that a great strategy to use, or is that hurting or helping, or what do you think?
Well, Pinterest wants you to create image variations. Their marketing team had said that you can create alternative images for the same piece of content. And there's really a hierarchy. So the best content to put on Pinterest is content that's never been there before. That's going to get the best distribution because it's brand new. The second best piece of content is a new image for an old piece of content that's on Pinterest already. So the new image means it's a fresh design, it's going to capture people's attention, it's brand new, and Pinterest prioritizes that next. Then you've got your older content that you've resaved. And so that's really the hierarchy to think of. And so creating these image variations is a great way to freshen up the piece of content, give it a new look. Again, same branding, same style and everything, but give it a new angle that you're looking at it from. There's a few reasons why you do this. One, A to B testing. You want to see which designs perform the best so that you can move with the designs that perform the best moving forward. Then again, you start A to B testing again, and you create a new design that goes next to that one so that you can constantly see what your audience actually engages with. What kind of design do they always click on? What kind of design captures their attention? So that is where creating these image variations help a lot. Now, the other thing that helps is if your audience is slightly different. So there's a few different types of people within your ideal client audience. They are going to notice different things. So some of your audience might really be attracted to bold, huge letters, huge statement pieces, while others are more lifestyle, soft, muted tones and text, for example. So sometimes what you want to do is when you have a piece of content, whether it's a product or a blog post, you want to create those image variations because you have different kinds of people that will engage with your content, and you want to give them the piece of content in the way that they would most likely engage with it. And so if it's a piece of jewelry and a bold statement in terms of just, the picture is maybe just the head of the model with the necklace and bold text, that might attract one person looking for that same piece of jewelry. Another type of person may prefer where you have a lifestyle shot. So the model is actually in an environment where they would wear this piece of jewelry and that person connects with that. So that pin is perfect. So you have different kinds of people within your audience that would engage and click on different styles of pins. And so when you test the different variations and you create these variations, you make it easier for people to engage with your content and to notice it. And in terms of the number of pin images per piece of content, you really can keep creating new, fresh images. The key thing to remember, though, is that if you are creating a number of variations and you're changing the text on the image and so on, you need to keep text cohesion and image cohesion in mind. So if it's image cohesion, that means you have to keep your branding on the images. You need to make sure that it still fits the style of your website so that Pinterest can be saying, yes, this is still image cohesion. Text cohesion means if you're creating brand new titles on your pin image with the text and the text doesn't appear in the blog, then you don't have text cohesion. If the keywords don't match or aren't similar, then you don't have that text cohesion. So there are ways to create multiple image variations, approach the page that you are trying to get people to, the blog post or anything like that, with different images, but you have to make sure that you are always looking at it from text cohesion and image cohesion. And so that's the only thing that I would say you have to pay attention to. But you're more than welcome to do 15, 20 images for a piece of content. It's just how long before you share them to the next person, you know what I mean? So, to the next board, next person. Sorry about that. So when you save one of the images, make sure there's a bit of time before the next version of the next image version goes out. Then a little bit of time before the next image version goes out. You don't want to pack them all right next to each other. You want to give it some space and some time. So you can have one image and then a couple of weeks and another image. But before you repin it to the same board, you have to wait 3 to 4 months. Otherwise, it's considered kind of spammy. Oh, you muted.
Yep, sorry about that.
Okay.
It would be hard if you or it would be weird if you go to somebody's board and it's like 15 of the same exact thing all within 2 weeks time frame. But I can see how if months apart you reshare it with a new image and keep the text alignment. I love that it gives you the ability to kind of take that same piece of content and test and market or test and measure it to see which one's more popular, what style your audience likes. And especially as you're doing your ideal client work, making sure you know who your ideal client is, find out which one's performing the best. And then you can do more of that versus going with one pattern that maybe is not getting as many likes and then taking 2 years to figure out that that's the wrong image to be using for your ideal client. So it's a whole nother piece to the ideal client work on your Pinterest board.
Definitely.
Do you see that there's, as businesses, as we're marketing ourselves on Pinterest, do you see if there's any big common mistakes that we make or anything that you notice that we shouldn't be doing that maybe a lot of business owners do on their Pinterest boards to kind of steer us away out of that direction?
Yes, there's a few things. There's obviously going to be in different categories depending on what you're looking at specifically on Pinterest. But one of the biggest struggles is not utilizing the search engine the way that it should be used. So like I said, this year it's really focusing in on search engine optimization. And it's not a scary thing. SEO sounds scary, but it isn't. It really is just thinking, what would your audience type in when they were looking for something like this? Make sure you're using those kind of keywords and then also research that they actually are. So there's a few ways that you can just say, okay, this is what I need to do for my search engine optimization on Pinterest. I've done it. I'm showing up in the search results. I can actually appear in front of my ideal clients. And so all that effort and the work that you do isn't wasted. And I think for me, that's one of the biggest challenges and problems I see on Pinterest is people aren't using it as a search engine appropriately but they're putting all of this effort into blog post creation, podcast creation, even product creation, and then sharing it, but not really thinking about how they can leverage it by just focus on what the Pinterest search engine really is, use it for that, and you'll get results. And so I always see it, and I'm always like, you could really get a lot more from the work that you're doing. And I hate it when we put in effort and time and we're not getting the reward that we are looking for, and we aren't getting what we set out to get or achieve, essentially. And the other thing is just when creating a Pinterest profile and creating pin designs and everything, it's not really thinking about it as its own platform and how Pinterest users actually use the platform. So when you think of Instagram images, a lot of people want to auto post that to Pinterest. And while you can do that because you can claim your Instagram account through Pinterest, and so all of it's attributed to you and everything like that, sometimes you'll share images from Instagram and it's perfect for Instagram. But if someone saw it on Pinterest, they're not going to click on it to engage with the caption. They're not looking at it like they are on Instagram. It's very different. If they can't tell what this image is about, then they're not going to be clicking on it. And so you're wasting a really great opportunity. So for example, on Instagram, you might post a picture of your planner and a coffee mug and everything, and your actual caption is all about goal setting and achievement and things like that. But when you save it to Pinterest, it may show up in someone's home feed or search results because they were looking at goals and things like that. But Pinterest saw the planner in the image and also tagged it with that keyword. So if someone is scrolling their home feed and they've been looking specifically at goals and motivation and those kind of things, and they see that, they're going to think you're trying to sell a planner. Because when they look at the image, they're like, this is all about a planner. They're not looking at the caption, or so when they click through and it goes to that Instagram post, it might not be what they were expecting. And so it's all just looking at it from how users actually use the platform.
Yeah. Do you recommend pinning videos then? If like
Definitely.
Okay, so you can just write, like, say a video that you record about a whatever topic, you can have the picture with the right text to go with it, and then just have the video where they would open up and it would be like a YouTube. Like, could you use YouTube, or would you want to pin it to your blog first and have them go to your blog where the video is embedded?
So there are some things to consider when you add video to Pinterest. So the kind of video you're adding to Pinterest is very short. It is essentially, they say, I think the best performance is under 10 seconds, under 30 seconds. Really, that is what gets the most engagement, because people on Pinterest are looking for inspiration, ideas, information, all of that. But they aren't on there like they are on YouTube, where they're specifically searching for a YouTube video. On Pinterest, they expect, when they search, to get an image and a blog post, a product, or something that's going to solve their problem. And so there are different ways that you can add your content to Pinterest. Now, Pinterest lets you claim your YouTube channel, which is great. It means that if you do have videos on YouTube that you want to link to, you have different options. The one is to actually add the video or share the video straight to Pinterest. But the likelihood is people aren't going to be watching a 5-minute video on Pinterest. It's going to be very small and it's just not going to stand out. So the best thing to do is design a pin image that actually sends them to YouTube, to that YouTube video. And you let them see on the image that there's a video waiting for them to watch, a big title about what it's about, so that when they know exactly where they're going. And they're like, yeah, I can watch a YouTube video, or I can watch a video about this topic because I am clicking through for that specifically. The other thing is you can create short video clips that intro your YouTube video. So a lot of people on Facebook do this, where they add a 30-second intro to their latest YouTube clip, and they have just massive text on it to tell you what it's about, and a short little intro, and then they say click through to YouTube to watch the rest of it. That would work really well on Pinterest. But again, when it comes to using Pinterest, you want long vertical graphics. So if you can export your video in a different dimension, so you have your regular video, but if you can go into your exporting platform or your video editing platform and export it in a Instagram story style, so that dimension, except for Pinterest obviously, then it's going to be seen on Pinterest. It's going to be easier to see it, and it's going to be easier to watch it because it's the right sizing. So you've got just different things like that. Now, for podcast users, if they want to add their audiograms to Pinterest that they would share on Instagram stories, perfect because it's a long vertical graphic. It shows the audio bar like that. And it has the massive title saying exactly what the podcast episode is about. Pinterest users like that. They can actually click on it. They can go through and listen to the podcast episode. So you can create these motion graphics and these videos and GIFs and things like that that you can share to Pinterest to get people to watch your video off Pinterest. Okay. Or if you have a food blog, for example, and you create videos like Tasty and BuzzFeed have, it's like a 30-second video and they make the recipe right in front of you. It's short. People can watch it without having to listen to anything because remember, they don't listen to the audio on Pinterest.
Yeah.
And so all it says is 1 cup of sugar, 2 cups of this, X, Y, Z. And then they can see the whole thing happen within a space of 30 seconds. And so that is intriguing to people. So think about it that way. Figure out how you can do that for your own business. Even if you're not a food blogger, figure out how you can make these short clips that either entice them to watch a full video or entice them to go to a specific place like a blog or a product or anything like that.
That's awesome. Such great tips. I'm so glad you're sharing these. Tell us how you work with your clients just a little bit so that we understand, like, what would it be like if we worked with you to help get our Pinterest going?
Definitely. So I, like I said, I'm a Pinterest educator. So I teach my students through my online program and the group coaching that goes with it. So it is a 12-week group coaching program that is assisted with this really comprehensive Pinterest course that goes with it. So I take you step by step through it. And that's really the main way that I assist people with their Pinterest setup, Pinterest process, and everything like that. We make sure that everything from the beginning to the end is completed. You know how to do promoted pins, you know how to use Pinterest for your business. And then obviously there's that support element. So that's the main way that I help my clients and my students really leverage Pinterest for their business. And the other thing that I do is I create smaller mini courses that help deep dive into one specific area. So for example, keywords, I know that's a huge thing this year, and probably over the next 5 years, it's going to be one of the main strategies that we'll be using. So I've created a shorter mini course that allows you to really deep dive into just keywords, because I find that a lot of my students or clients, they may feel confident in what they do on Pinterest, but now they want to really deep dive to take it to the next level. And that's where focusing on one little element like keyword optimization and simplifying your keyword research process is important. So that's how I assist my clients in that.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. So I asked a couple of fun questions this year to all the interview guests. So since we didn't get a chance to interview beforehand, and this is kind of our fun way to connect and go live together, I thought I would ask you the questions as well, since everybody who's been listening to the summit has already got these answers from everybody else, but they didn't get it from you. So, all right. So I have 4 questions for you. So the first one is, what is your morning routine? Or do
so I do, and it changes in the winter and the summer. So I always used to give myself a hard time, like I have to wake up at a certain time and do certain things, but I've realized that my seasons are slightly different. So winter and summer, I do slightly different things. Winter, it's waking up a lot earlier and I dive straight into exercise. I spend a little bit of time journaling. I spend some time just basically having a cup of tea, relaxing. I really like that because the mornings you can always hear the birds going. And so for me, that quiet time after having done some exercise, journaling and all of that just allows me to really think about my goals and get going. And then I dive into work quite early because I'm a morning person. Yeah, awesome. And so I really enjoy diving straight into work and getting it done before 2 p.m. at least. And then in the afternoon, I'm all about living life and having fun. So that would be more of a hike or doing something out by the lake or something like that. Winter's morning routine is slightly different. And I say this because it hasn't always been like this, but just recently moved to the northern hemisphere. So we're not used to this cold winter. So my morning routine right now is actually taking a slow morning. I'll wake up and have coffee in bed, stay warm, and just slowly get into it. And then do a little bit of exercise, again, tea, get into work. And then in the afternoon, if I didn't do the morning exercise, I'll do it in the afternoon, or I'll do that journaling in the afternoon and just sort of unwind after the day. So that's kind of my process.
Yeah. I love that you mentioned the different seasons too for what your morning routine looks like, because that's something that I feel like all of us, we like to hibernate a little bit more during the winter. So like I definitely noticed for myself, it's darker in the morning still during the winter months. And so I definitely, like, even this morning, it was pretty dark out when we were getting up, and we had a big marine layer of fog, and we went outside to take the kids to school this morning, and it was just like super foggy and cold. And I'm like, oh, it's just like perfect day to like stay on the couch and cuddle up under a blanket. But it's harder to get out of bed when it's colder, where during the summer you're like, oh, it's warm, the sun's shining, and like you can hear the birds chirping, and you're like, let's do this, let's go. So I like that you kind of separated that out for us.
Yeah.
What book do you feel has made the biggest impact on your business or life?
Yeah, so that would be, it's one of two. So Profit First by Mike, I'm going to butcher his surname, Mike McCallowicks.
It sounds good.
I always never know how to say it, yeah. And then Essentialism, and for some reason I am blanking on the author's name, even though I say it so often. But Essentialism, the pursuit of doing less. So that's probably one of the biggest ones in these last few years that have made the biggest impact, because as you grow your business, you just feel like you need to do more and more and more. And Essentialism has been so good because it's just focusing your attention. And the book was so insightful, just how we are so trained and used to adding more, doing more. And I just thought, going into parenting, eventually going into business, going into all of these different things, it's just, you can't add more. And so this book has made a huge impact just in how I run my business, but also my day, which is super important.
Yeah, because you're right. We typically take on so much, and we're like, oh, I can add that onto my schedule. Sure, I can do that. And then all of a sudden, before you realize it, you're exhausted and fried and burnt out. So it's important to find the things that feel really good to you, and that are actually things that are productive for you to be doing, instead of just doing things to feel busy. Like, we don't need to be busy all the time. So what's one thing that you would do different today, or what's one thing that you would tell your like beginning business self that you wish you would have known when you started?
I think I would have said that confidence is not something that develops over time just because you do it more and more. Confidence is really something that you just have to take on yourself. It's a mindset process. It's a process of you understanding what you're delivering, feeling confident in what you deliver. Really comes from just looking at everything that you have to offer, looking at what change you're making, and realizing that confidence you just have to actually put on. You have to go and become confident without it actually developing. Because I think you can have insecurities throughout your life, even if you've achieved, the greatest heights of whatever you set out to do. And I think if I could just go back and say that, because I'm pretty proud of the whole process that I've gone through, and saying like, that actually was perfect for the beginning. You stepped out. I did a lot of lives right in the beginning, live video, live this, doing all of that. So I'm pretty impressed with what I did then. But I would say just the confidence in my pricing and the confidence in the service that you're offering is not something that develops over time. You're always going to be lacking confidence in your pricing, lacking confidence in your service, until you actually realize and build your self-confidence from within, and you actually work on it every day. Because that to me is something that just doesn't develop unless you set aside time to actually develop it in your mindset.
No, that's so good, because you're so right. Like you can keep aspiring and trying to be confident, or you can just decide, you know what? I am confident. I don't have to like try to be, I don't have to work at it. Like, you just kind of step into that person that you want to be, and show up as if you already are confident, like, instead of trying to work towards it. So that's a great thing to think of, because sometimes we just need to be her. We don't need to like think about becoming her.
Exactly.
Awesome. And then the last question I asked everybody to kind of tie into the summit was, what does attract and stand out mean to you?
Well, attract would mean that you are, well, in terms of business, because I'm looking at it in terms of business when I hear that, because I've already got a husband, so I don't need to attract and stand out.
Like, no more of that.
So really in business, attract and stand out is, to me, it's attracting people that you know that you can serve and that you want to serve. And stand out means don't just follow what everybody else is doing because they say you should do it. Look at it, analyze it, and find out how you can do it better in a way that meshes with what you're doing, because that helps you stand out really. And I think, to me, when I think of marketing, when I think of business, it's actually saying, like, I know people are saying this is the right way to do it, but I want to see this doesn't actually mesh with what I believe and what I want for my business and for my students. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to do it the way that I want to do it. I'm going to share it the way that I think they need to see it and hear it, and stand out from the crowd.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being a part of the summit and for joining us on this live. Before I tell people where to find you, I know you have a free gift for everybody. Can you tell everybody about your free gift so they can jump on it immediately and download it?
Definitely. So it's the Ultimate Sales Funnel Guide for Pinterest. And what that essentially is going to help you do is just going to tell you a bit more about Pinterest, and it's going to tell you what you need to consider when you are looking at your customer journey. And so the important thing to remember is Pinterest isn't just a traffic generator. It is that as a platform, but you want to actually convert the traffic. You want to take them on a journey. So when you think of people, don't think of them as just a number. Think of them as people. And think of how they engage with your brand throughout the process. So when they're on Pinterest, what is their first experience with you? And when they get off Pinterest, where are they going? And what is the next step that you are asked to take? And so this sales funnel guide is going to help you see, depending on what you have to offer and sell, what kind of flow you could potentially use as your customer journey, as the sales funnel. What is the next step in the process that they would likely follow, to make sure that you are actually setting up a funnel and not just sending them somewhere hoping that they'll convert, but now you're actually taking charge of it yourself.
Awesome. And where do people find you? Obviously, they find you on Pinterest, but if they want to connect, do you prefer Facebook or Instagram? Where do you like to hang out the most?
So I'm all about Facebook. I love it. And so you can find me on Facebook. I have commented in the Facebook Live already, or I've liked it. I'll comment it in a sec. And so you'll see my profile and you can go and visit my Facebook group, my Facebook page, however you want to engage with me. I really love to chat on Facebook. So that's kind of my place.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being a part of the summit and sharing all of these tips to use to grow our Pinterest and just really create a business that can continue to grow, because there's so many cool different ways and avenues that we can grow our businesses, and having Pinterest as like another way that SEO can capture us and help people find us is just a great way to show up.